Thank you, Jerry. Before I introduce our speaker tonight, I want to tell you just a quick story. The other day I was chatting with a friend of mine, and we were comparing great inventions of various civilizations. I mentioned the microchip, the personal computer, and the internet as pretty decent inventions on our side. He scoffed and said, "That's nothing compared with the Islamic time machine." I said, "The Islamic time machine? Never heard of that one." He said, "Oh yeah, it can take any country back 1,400 years. Our featured speaker tonight was born and raised a Muslim in Egypt and the Gaza Strip. Her father was a prominent leader of the Egyptian military who organized the Fedayeen operations, which targeted and killed hundreds of Israeli civilians until he was killed in 1956. She grew up in an environment that cultivated a keen sense of resentment, grievance, anti-Semitism, and hatred of Israel. She earned a degree at the American University of Cairo, emigrated to the United States in 1978, and subsequently converted to Christianity. She founded the group Arabs for Israel in 1994. Shortly after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, she began writing pieces critical of Islamic extremism. She was a co-founder in 2009 of a group called Former Muslims United. She's written extensively on Islam, including several books, most recently, The Devil We Don't Know, The Dark Side of Revolutions in the Middle East. An expert on the Middle East, she covers topics such as human rights and women's rights under Islamic law. Human rights and women's rights under Islamic law. That sounds like a contradiction in terms to me. She lectures extensively on college campuses and internationally, although I'm sorry to say, apparently some organizations are fearful of the consequences of her message. Just last month, in fact, she had been scheduled as a keynote speaker for iFest, a week-long pro-Israel event at the University of California at Irvine. Unfortunately, one of the sponsoring organizations, Hillel, feared that her appearance would be too divisive and canceled. She had the wit long ago to reject the teachings of the virulent, totalitarian ideology known as Islam, and the courage to speak out eloquently and fearlessly about the harm that Sharia law can and does inflict on its hosts. She deserves our appreciation and admiration. Please help me give a warm Conservative Forum welcome to Nonie Darwish.
Thank you. Thank you. What an honor. What an honor and pleasure to be here with you. Really, your group here just warms my heart because I didn't know there were any conservatives in Silicon Valley. And you are the patriots of today. And let me tell you, I learned from you. When I came from Egypt and immigrated to this country, I came with baggage. I didn't know what liberty means. I didn't know what human rights meant, women's rights. I didn't know equality. All of this is never taught to us. Peace, the concept of peace. I didn't know any, and people like you, it's Americans like you who taught me what I am today. So that's why I want to thank you. I lived for 30 years of my life in oppressive dictatorships and police states. I saw and experienced and met people who were honor-killed, female genital mutilation, oppression of women, polygamy, and how polygamy destroys the family dynamics completely. For a man to have a polygamous marriage, his loyalty is to no one at the end. If you look at the Muslim marriage contract, which is in my second book about Sharia, the cruel and unusual punishment, in the Muslim marriage contract, there's a question for the groom. Please name an address of wife number 1, wife number 2, and wife number 3, if any. So the bride signs the marriage contract knowing that he does not vow loyalty to her. It's totally different concept from marriage in the Judeo-Christian culture, where they both vow loyalty to each other equally. That was a revolution that was brought to us by the Judeo-Christian culture. When I see in Middle East marriages and compare it to my Jewish friends or my Christian friends, I find it very different, having lived there and lived here. I often see in America, and especially in Israel, powerful men and powerful women who respect each other. In the Middle East, you either find two kinds of women, either the doormat or the extremely aggressive. Because when you put so much pressure on women, oppress them a lot, especially under the law, you will either completely get suffocated or you become extremely aggressive and oppressive. And that is something I wouldn't want any woman to experience. I want to start also by telling you that I'm not here to criticize people or Muslims, the people. The problem is not the people, it's the ideology. And please, when I speak about Islam, don't misunderstand me and think I'm trying to insult Muslim people. Some of the nicest people I know are Muslims. So we're not here speaking about human beings. Germany gave us Hitler and the most horrific ideology called Nazism. But it doesn't mean that every German was evil. Communism is evil because it oppresses people. But it doesn't mean everybody who lived in the Soviet Union was evil. So I don't understand why in America we're not getting it. When we criticize Islam, we're criticizing an ideology and not people. There's good and bad in every culture. So I hope I made myself clear, because I often, when I speak, especially on college campuses, and I make this statement, at the end they come back and they say, but why are you criticizing all Muslims? Which is not true. And that accusation is happening to silence us, to silence people like me, Robert Spencer, Pamela Geller, all of us, Brigitte Gabriel, all of us, who are really criticizing the ideology. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in very crucial times. We have just succeeded in ending the Cold War. And now we are starting a new, we are confronting a new enemy. But this enemy, we don't want to even name by name. This is the first time in American history. We are in a war, and people have declared war against us all over the Middle East. We are the great Satan. Israel is the little Satan. They have declared war on us in every mosque, Friday prayers always end with, may God destroy the Jews and the infidels. Israel is the enemy of Islam. Allahu Akbar, go kill them, and jihad, jihad, jihad. Why isn't this coming here and we comment about it? And why are we afraid of commenting about it? Didn't we have enough with Hitler being afraid of commenting on what happened? It's just a different ideology, that's all. But it's preaching the same evil, if not worse. Because with Hitler, he didn't have a religion to lie on and say, it's God's will. This is an ideology that's been in war with humanities for 1,400 years. And we have to speak about it openly and honestly. And I think even Muslims, the good and peace-loving Muslims, should join us, because they need to see the reality and, if possible, to reform their religion. But by appeasing the situation and not wanting to mention it, and we keep getting hit and terrorized, and our men and women are being killed, and airplanes are flying into buildings, and for 13 years later, we can't name them, something is wrong here. This is not America, and we have to start speaking out. So this is a war you have to understand that has been imposed on us by the jihadists. And it is our duty to call them by name. And no appeasement. We have to call them by name. And I'm not saying go bomb Muslims. Of course not. But we have to identify our enemy. And when we remove any reference in 9/11 memorial in New York, any reference from the word Islam or jihad, what does that mean? It means terrorism worked on us. Terrorism works, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't only work on individuals. Terrorism affects the psyche of whole nations. It makes them elect the wrong people. Whole nations can fall into the Stockholm syndrome. It's not just one person, a person who was taken hostage, like Patricia Hearst. No, whole nations. This can be a syndrome that happens, and I am seeing this in America. America is totally divided against itself. Half of America wants to know the truth, and half of America is in denial. And they're fighting each other instead of looking at the enemy that wants to destroy us. This is not healthy. And so, what have we done since 9/11? We have hired Muslim Brotherhood sympathizers in our government. We didn't hire Muslims who are rebelling against Sharia. We are hiring in the White House, in Homeland Security, and in several of our top government, even Mohammed al-Ibyari, he's a senior Homeland Security official. He's a Muslim, and he tweeted something after Egypt had its counter-revolution and took out the Muslim Brotherhood. He tweeted statements, and remember, this is a man who is a leader in our Homeland Security. He represents America to Egypt. In the Egyptian mind, he represents America. And this is what he tweeted. He was supporting the Muslim Brotherhood against the people who took the Muslim Brotherhood out. And he was against the more secular government. And I'm not saying military in Egypt, military rule is good. But they are the only ones who can stand up to the tyrants. The only people in an Islamic state that can stand up to the Khomeini-style regime or a Saudi-style regime, there's only one regime that can stand up to them, and it's the military. And this man was criticizing the people who took out the Muslim Brotherhood, and he was critical also of the Christian minority in Egypt that's being slaughtered in Egypt today. The message to Egypt was America is against our freedom. Their people are supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the message. It has never happened in history. America was always on the side of people who are for freedom. And in the last few years, we have been siding with the wrong people. And this is the very delicate situation that, by the way, I'm not trying to just criticize Obama mistakes happen. But But what happened is Obama has taken it to a totally new level. Totally new level. We have been trying to appease the terrorists in even previous organizations. We have fought on the side of Kosovo against the Serbs, on the side of Muslims against the Serbs. We have fought Iraq against, on behalf of Kuwait to be liberated them from Iraq. We are killing our children to defend Muslims. What has that gained us? And Republican administration are doing it just like Democratic. We should not go kill our children to defend Muslims. There's about 54 Islamic countries in the world. They are totally capable of defending themselves. We don't know the consequences of when we interfere and help Muslims. First of all, it doesn't work. They don't appreciate us still. When we went to Saudi Arabia to defend Saudi Arabia from Saddam, because Saddam took Kuwait and he was moving into Saudi Arabia, and he lit up all the oil fields. He set them on fire. It took us, America, a year and a half to put it off. It was calling an environmental problem. Okay? Do you know that when we were in Saudi Arabia, our military was considered by the Saudis as infidel filth that is desecrating our land? They invite them to defend them, but they regard them as, and they bombed the building with a lot of our servicemen who died. So really, you have to understand that we are going to be infidels in their eyes, whether we do something good or bad. We are, in their eyes, infidels. As long as Islam is radical, they will always look at non-Muslims as infidels. Just look at how they treat the Jews and the Christians in the Middle East. Just look at that and understand. Do you know that the Christians in Egypt are trying to appease the Muslims by any means? Because they're a minority, by any means, and nothing works. They're kidnapping girls and forced marrying them. They are burning their churches. They are killing the women. I mean, it's unbelievable. Nothing works. So I hope America gets the lesson. Don't appease. It's not going to work. You can only defeat radical Islam. So, America has suffered trauma after 9/11, and no one is discussing it. No one is looking after the average American citizen who loves his country. And I'm very sad over that. We expect too much from the American citizens. It's us who always have to put up with the rest of the world. It's us who always have to be blamed. But third world countries are, they are so poor and oppressed. You have no clue that tyranny can come from any nation. You can be the poorest nation on earth and you can be tyrannical. So being a third world country does not make you immune to become a tyrant. There was a sheikh recently in Egypt who stated the following: we are commanded by God to terrorize, and it's in our Qur'an. And he said the word terrorize in Arabic is irhab. And if you check the word terrorize in the Qur'an, you'll find it all over. Muhammad himself, he stated, I have been victorious through terror. So you wonder why they're doing terrorism? It's in the Quran. Their ideology, their books are telling them that. That's why I'm not criticizing the people. I'm criticizing the books, the Sharia law, because it's creating monsters. And this is what we have to deal with. If anybody comes to tell you, oh, you're a racist because you're criticizing Islam, say, no, 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 I'm not a racist. I'm not criticizing people, I'm criticizing the ideology. You have to be very firm and self-confident that you are criticizing an ideology. There are white Muslims, there are black Muslims, there are everything in between. So it has nothing to do with race. So don't be intimidated by the words, you're a racist. They call me racist. I'm racist against my race. I mean, when they don't know how to deal with me, they eventually just call me a name. You're a racist. What does race have to do with what I'm saying? I want equality for everybody. I came to America when my first job. I was, as a new immigrant, I was reading everything. Whenever I went to work, I read every note written on the wall, every map I see, I check, as a new immigrant. And I saw a sign at my work on the wall. I noticed nobody looks at it. And it says the following: this institution does not discriminate in hiring on the basis of race, national origin, gender, or race, or anything. And I read it and reread it and reread it. To me, it was like, oh my God, does that mean I'm equal to men? Here I am, I'm coming from an area of the world where you have a totally different legal system for women, different from men. If you're a woman, your testimony in court is half the value of a man. Can you believe this? If I go to court and I am testifying and there's a man testifying and we contradict each other, he wins because he's a man. That's the law. That is not the culture, that's the legal system. So when you come suddenly to America and you're confronted that you're equal, it's almost like, oh my God, I'm equal? How do I deal with that? And really, it took me a while for me to really feel equal. It's not easy when you're living in a prison. It's not easy to see the freedom right away. And that's why I'm speaking, because I love this country. I'm just very grateful for this country. It gave me my freedom. So ever since, after 9/11 happened, a lot of Americans, remember, were saying, where are the voices of the Middle Eastern people to speak against jihad and to stand up to this terrorism? And I was one of the first people who started speaking. So I started speaking. And gradually, I felt I'm being silenced. I'm being shut up from. And at the end now, they call me controversial, they call me Islamophobe and racist. Here I am, I'm being invited on college campuses to speak, and I used to speak like at least every semester 6-7 times. And especially during the time when there is an Israel apartheid week. See, every year there is an attack on Israel on campuses. And it's an anti-Semitic week, really. And the Jewish kids are intimidated. If there was no Israel apartheid week, I don't care to go. But there has to be some balance. So they invite me to speak. And they are desperate to hear my message. And my message is very reasonable, by the way. I'm not attacking people. Like I said, I'm attacking the ideology. So now, no, you can't come. So anti-Israel groups have all the right to speak on college campuses. Nobody's bothering them. And pro-Israel people are being silenced and being called names. So here I am, after 9/11, after they asked where are the Middle Eastern people in America who should speak against Islam, radical Islam, and now we're being silenced. We're not politically correct. So this is a very strange situation for a country to reject or to stand against people who are speaking about their enemy. I don't know if it ever happened in history. I studied a lot of history. I don't remember any nation that made it taboo to speak about an enemy that's actually declaring war against that nation. It's very strange. It's like a Stockholm syndrome. And we are now very compliant, very appeasing, and is it any coincidence? Is it any coincidence that the first election, and I'm not a psychology, by the way, I took a few classes of psychology at my university days, but you don't need a psychiatrist really to understand. Is it a coincidence that the first person to elect as president after 9/11, his name rhymes with Osama? Is this a Freudian thing? Really, this is something that we have to think about. Why are we doing this? So we are defending the culture that flew airplanes into our buildings. Now, this is what America is doing. And we are preventing our discussing it even in our homeland security, calling anything related to Islam. And now we need to confront and understand what is Islam, what does it do to a nation? What does Islam, why is it so dangerous? What does it do to a nation? And I'll give you an example. 1,300 years ago, or 1,400 years ago, in the 7th century, there were two superpowers in the world. And they were not the United States and the Soviet Union. They were the Byzantine Empire and the Persian Empire. Egypt was part of the Byzantine Empire. Egypt was a Christian nation. Egypt used to have queens. Not just one or two, many queens. It's not just Cleopatra. We had Nefertiti, we had Hatshepsut, who's the most brilliant one. She ruled, she had fleets all over. Egypt had one of the few countries that had fleets. And the Persian Empire and the Byzantine Empire were fighting, having 10-year wars between them. They were tired, demoralized. And the people started hating their leadership. And there comes out of the Arabian Peninsula a fresh army. They had a sword in one hand and the Qur'an in the other hand. And they were looking at these civilizations that had rivers, that had gold, that had beautiful women, and they wanted to conquer them. They wanted to conquer Jerusalem to end the memory of the Jewish people. They conquered Egypt and Persia in the same year, the year 639. Egypt's language was changed to Arabic by a culture that we look down upon. The Arabian Peninsula. Nobody wanted to conquer Arabia. It had nothing. It was a desert. They wanted to conquer us because we had the rivers, we had the wealth, we had the gold, we had the agriculture. So they came and conquered Persia and Egypt and their wealth, changed our religion, and imposed a tax on anyone who practices anything other than Islam. And all the money went to Arabia. Egypt never saw its glory days again. And today, Egypt is like a third world country that cannot even rule itself. Egypt has undergone a 1919 revolution, a 1952 revolution, a 2011 revolution, a 2013 counter-revolution, and there is still talk about another revolution to remove Sisi. Is this what you want? It can happen to superpowers, ladies and gentlemen. Islam, when they penetrate a country, because it's a dysfunctional system. It oppresses human nature. It causes chaos. It has a very oppressive legal system called Sharia. I want to name you a few of the laws of Sharia so you can judge for yourself the impact of such laws on society. Put aside all the laws that humiliate women and beat women and kill women and stone women for sexual misconduct, and put aside all of that. I'm sure you know that part. I'm going to give you a law under Sharia that I'm sure you've hardly heard it. And it's as follows. It's regarding government. And it says the following: a Muslim head of state can come to power through seizure of power, meaning through force. Can you believe it if you have a law like that in your constitution? An American head of state can come to power through seizure of power, meaning through force, revolution, assassination, coup d'etat against the government, and everybody cheers for them. Hello, Mr. New President. Good, let's assassinate the old president. It's legal under Islamic law. Legal if the president is not enforcing Sharia 100%. What does a law like that do? It makes a Muslim head of state paranoid. That's at the least. He surrounds himself with lots of guards. And he starts to rule with an iron fist. Is it a coincidence why all Muslim countries have tyrants? It's not because everybody loves tyrants in the Middle East, and that's why they have tyrants. It's not because their nature is so bad. Actually, some of the men who've led in the Middle East, really deep down inside them, they're good people. But if they don't become tyrants, they will be assassinated. And it all goes back to the Sharia law. And they want to bring Sharia law in America. I'm just giving you one law that makes a nation unable to rule itself in peace. I'll give you another law that will never make a nation live in peace. It's the obligation of every Muslim to do jihad. And this is the definition of jihad, according to their books. By the way, everything I'm saying is from their books, from mainstream books. It's not like from some weird book somewhere. No, this is mainstream Islamic Sharia books. And here it says, every Muslim must do jihad. And not only every Muslim individual, but every Muslim head of state must do jihad against neighboring non-Muslim countries. What is the consequence of a law like that? Israel can never live in peace because it's surrounded by 18 nations who are being ruled by dictators afraid to be assassinated if they don't follow Sharia. And Sharia tells them you have to do jihad against non-Muslim countries. Which is the closest non-Muslim country in the Middle East? Israel. And that's why we have an Arab-Israeli conflict. If the West just understand what Sharia is, they will understand who's the victim and who's the oppressor in the Middle East. They will understand the Arab-Israeli conflict, but the West doesn't want to understand because we have an idea in the West that religion must be protected. We have to protect religion. Anybody who says, this is my religion, we have to give them all the rights. Even if the religion has a law in it that if a person leaves that religion, they must be killed. Why is it that I cannot visit any Muslim country? Because I'll be killed on the street by anybody, and the police will say, we never saw who killed her. This is happening every day in the Middle East to the Christians who are being killed, and nobody knows who killed them. Nobody's in jail for the murder of Christians in Egypt or apostates. Okay? In Sudan, which is a more radical country than Egypt, it's not just the people on the street will kill an apostate. No, the government actually goes and arrests you and puts you on a trial and condemn you to death. Even if you're a pregnant woman, like what's happening these days. I don't know, did you hear about the Sudanese? Okay. And according to Muhammad, one time he did condemn a woman in the 7th century to death, but she was pregnant. And he said, okay, we have to wait till she delivers and she weans the baby and then we kill her. And they actually killed her after the baby was weaned. So they're following exactly what's in their books. So the problem is not the people, it's in what's in their books. And we have to stand up and say this, what's written in your books is barbaric. When you condemn a whole group of people called Jews, to call them apes and pigs and enemies of Allah, that's barbaric. They are doing that. And what happened, because the Jews rejected Muhammad, they didn't want to convert to Islam, and they were living in Medina with him. So he actually participated in killing almost 900 Jewish men of one tribe. They beheaded these men. The first Holocaust on the Jews is not Hitler. It was Muhammad. And he expelled the rest of the tribes, and then he took all the women as sexual hostages. Does that remind you of what's happening in Uganda now? Is it Uganda? The 300 young girls? They are Nigeria. They're doing the same thing. It's under the Islamic law, Sharia. If you're in a war with non-Muslims, you have the right. You have the right to take the women as sexual slaves. And there are people in the Middle East today who are advocating they have to do this in the open. By the way, some Muslim women in London with their head completely covered, only their eyes, are carrying signs that what happened in Nigeria is okay. Hallelujah. They've converted 300 Christian girls. Hallelujah, they're saying. It doesn't matter how they convert them, kidnap them, kidnapping minors and force marrying them. Hallelujah. Allahu Akbar. That is the value system that's totally contradictory from our value system. And what just scares me, and I don't understand, is why liberals who are supposed to be the holders of the feminist movement and freedom and let's burn our bras, okay? Where are they? Come defend me. I'm under death sentence. The difference between the Judeo-Christian culture and the Islamic culture is huge. It's the opposite exactly. Christianity and Judaism concentrates on wanting to change yourself from within. And I didn't know that. When I was a Muslim, I was an anti-Semite. I didn't know better. That's how I was brought up. When I came here and I went to a synagogue with a girlfriend of mine, and I said, okay, I'm going to hear them now curse Muslims, like we curse them in the mosque, you know. That's what I thought. I thought everybody curses in churches and synagogues. They must be cursing Muslims like we curse them. So I sat there and my jaw dropped. They were praying for everybody, for all of humanity. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so different. And they were constantly in the synagogue and the churches, they're constantly talking about how to fix yourself. We're all sinners. That's what they say in churches all the time. We're all sinners. What a concept. Because in my religion of origin, they are all sinners. We are Muslims. And we have a duty to change you in order to go to heaven. That's the difference between Christianity and Judaism and Islam. Christianity and Judaism wants to change oneself, make yourself a better person, put the responsibility on you. Islam is consumed with changing the other, and self-criticism is a crime. Is this enough to make you understand? I mean, how much do I give you information to make you... For instance, the name Abdullah is the most popular Islamic name. Abdullah, it means slave of God. The way we look at God in Islam is that we're slaves and he's God. He's way up there and we're slaves. And in Christianity, we're children of God. What a concept. Big difference. Forgiveness is so important in the Bible, both the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible. Forgiveness is so important. And the 7 deadly sins, they discuss fixing yourself. And if all of society fixes itself, we're okay. This is basic psychology even. Basic decency, let alone religion. But in Islam, Muslims are forbidden from forgiving their enemies of Allah. They are forbidden from forgiving Jews. I was invited on Al Arabiya TV to discuss my book. And what happened? They told me, your father was killed by Israel, and you're a traitor. You're not worthy of being his daughter. I was insulted bad and harassed because you forgave the people that killed him. I said forgiveness is the best thing we can do, and we should forgive them, and they should forgive us. And honest to God, the guy almost wanted to kill me because he couldn't understand the concept of forgiveness. You can forgive your Muslim friends, but you can't forgive non-Muslims. It's against Islamic culture, Islamic ideology. And that's why it's very hard for a Muslim to truly be a good Muslim and a good follower and be really wanted to live truly in peace with the Jews. It's an oxymoron. And it goes back to why Muhammad killed them. The minute Muslims make peace with the Jews and consider them not as apes and pigs and enemies of Allah, like Muhammad stated in the Qur'an, if they eventually, finally admit they're human beings, by the way. Oh my God, they're human beings. They're not apes and pigs and enemies of Allah. Then, if we admit that, then our prophet was a murderer when he killed them. It's an existential problem for Islam. So the hate education of Jews has to continue, and Islam doesn't have the confidence in itself to stop the hate. Actually, Islam, they were discussing in Egypt recently the punishment, killing apostates. And some young people in Egypt were saying, we shouldn't force people to convert to Islam. We should leave it optional. And there comes one of the top leaders of Islam, and he addressed this. His name is Qaradawi. He is the #1 in Sunni Islam. And he said on TV, and the clip is on YouTube, if we end the capital punishment for those who leave Islam, Islam will end. Can you believe this? It's like the Pope for Christianity, like the Pope making a statement, if we don't kill Catholics who leave Catholicism, then Catholicism will end. They have no confidence in their own religion. Why should we have confidence in it ourselves? We shouldn't have confidence in it. We shouldn't give it the respect. Those are people who don't accept forgiveness, redemption. The only way under Islam to go to heaven is to kill non-Muslims to go to heaven in the jihad. When my father was killed in the jihad against Israel, I was only 8. People, and I remember it until today, I was brokenhearted, really. People came and said, oh, congratulations, your father now is in heaven. It's the only guarantee to go to heaven is to die in the process of killing non-Muslims. And he was killing Jews. Ooh, what an honor. And with my 8-year-old mind, I told myself, I don't want my dad in heaven. I want him down here with us. And I was looked at with such disrespect, like, aren't you a Muslim? Aren't you a good Muslim? So I learned to keep it to myself. I should never criticize jihad. That was the message. And that's why I remember it until today. So Islam seeks to control people by not allowing them to leave Islam through a death penalty. The difference is huge between the Judeo-Christian culture, which produces a stable society, because there's harmony and trust between people, because everybody's responsible for themselves. Islam is everybody's responsible for everybody else except themselves. And it produces a society that lives in constant chaos, because everybody thinks they're the boss of everybody else. A girl has a boyfriend, her father goes to kill her. And you know why her father goes to kill her brother? Because he can't show his face to the society anymore. They will shame him to death. Society is very cruel on men, too. It's not just women in Islamic society. So they force the father to kill. Have you ever seen the movie, The Stoning of Soraya? Did you remember who threw the first stone? It was the father. They gave the father the first stone to stone his daughter. And her son, and then the rest of the village. So they forced the men to deny their humanity, to kill their women in order to save face and live with some little pride. So Islamic culture is cruel on men as much as it's cruel on women, but it's in a different way. So Islam, wherever it goes, seeks government control. Islam in America seeks government control. They're already in our government. So Christianity and Judaism, actually Judaism doesn't even want to spread itself outside of the Jewish people. Christianity tries to spread itself through reaching the hearts and minds of people by knocking at their door and showing them the Bible. Islam doesn't want to waste that time. Islam forces itself through government on the people. That's why they seek government right away, wherever they go. I want to give you an example of the history of Islam. Am I too long? Few more minutes. I want to tell you a story. If you look at the history of Islam in the last 1400 years, you will see Islam conquering countries through controlling the government and forcing itself on the people by making it illegal to live there. Being a Muslim is not a personal relationship with God. Being a Muslim is a contract with the state. When I was born, My birth certificate was stamped Muslim. My student ID, Muslim. My passport, Muslim. Because if I'm caught in the country, in a church, I could be killed. So your being a Muslim is not a relationship with God that's independent. In Saudi Arabia, if you're caught, if you're the shop owner and it's time to pray, and you don't go to pray, the police can arrest you. So your being a Muslim is really a contract with the state that you cannot violate. So this is a very different concept of God, very different from, and that's how Islam expanded. When it went to India, eventually Muslims were a minority in India, and then finally they said, we want to have our own country. We want to practice Sharia law. The rest of the Hindus said, no, we don't want you to practice Sharia law. We don't want to live under Sharia law. Okay, we want a separatist movement. So they took an area of India called Pakistan. Did they end there? No, now Pakistan hates India, and they're terrorizing India all the time. It's never ending. Some Muslims during the Turkish Empire went to Eastern Europe, and some areas of Eastern Europe are majority Muslim. Kosovo was created. Why was there a war between the Serbs and Kosovo? It's over Sharia law. It's the same thing. Whether it's in India, in Egypt, in Kosovo, in Eastern Europe. What's Chechnya? Chechnya is, during the Ottoman Empire also, some Muslims lived in certain areas of Russia and became strong enough, and they want a separatist movement from Russia today. What are they doing? They're constantly bombing. Well, schools kill 200 babies starting kindergarten. They go to theaters and blow up theaters. They blow up something every now and then in Russia, the Chechens. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm predicting we're going to have a Chechnya in France. We're going to have a Chechnya in the United Kingdom. And if we don't do something today, we can have a Chechnya in America. Are we going to allow our grandchildren to fight the war we should fight today? Are we going to let them fight from door to door, from school to school, from restaurant to restaurant? Our grandchildren, and maybe our children even, after we're all gone. And this is my question. We are not doing even Muslims a favor with appeasement. Muslims are human beings. They want to live happy, most of them. But we are telling them your religion is okay. They terrorize us. Oh, it's okay. We're racist. We're sorry. What is this? We have to say it like it is. You terrorize me, I terrorize you. But we're not doing that. And let me tell you, Arabs respect power. And we're not showing them power, we're showing them weakness. And we are not even doing Islam or Muslims a favor. And we're allowing the Muslim Brotherhood to penetrate us. There's a law that President Obama recently made it easier for asylum seekers from the Middle East to come here, even if they had a little bit of a link to terror groups. Did you hear about that law? He did it unilaterally, and I think this is designed on purpose for all the Muslim Brotherhood who's escaping Egypt today, because they are illegal now. So what are we doing? We're absorbing the terrorists, and we're absorbing the Muslim Brotherhood in America. Welcome to America, and maybe this way we're going to rid the Middle East of its terrorists. I hope not. I hope not. This is just a joke, but I'm telling you, it's sometimes what we're doing is really for somebody like me who lived in this Islamic terror, it scares the hell out of me, especially when I saw yesterday President Obama in the Rose Garden with the father of that man who's a suspicion that he was, he went AWOL. And he brings the wife and the father and mother, and the father, the first words he utters in front of our president, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Do you know what that word means? It means I'm a Muslim. This is the first word in the Islamic prayer, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the merciful and the compassionate. This is the first words in every 5 days, 5 times a day, Muslims say this at the beginning of their prayer before they curse. So I cannot imagine Bush having this scene. I can't. I mean, only Obama can be a fool like that. But he's not a fool. He's not a fool. I think he's doing it on purpose. I think he's rubbing the noses. He is rubbing the noses of American people in the Islamic rug. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're going to start your questions. Joel, you've got some already?
I do, yes. Let me do a quick sound check. Are you able to hear me okay?
Joel is going to ask you the question.
Okay.
You can answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, any questions?
The questions will come from over here. Our ushers will hand out cards to people, and then people will write their questions down, and we'll bring them over here. I do have a couple of questions to start us off, though. First one, if Islam gave up hating all non-Muslims, what would the essence of Islam be?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Over here.
Oh, hi. What's the question again?
If Islam gave up hating all non-Muslims, what would the essence of Islam be?
It will be an empty shell, because 64% of the Qur'an is cursing non-Muslims. 64% of the Qur'an is consumed with non-members of the religion. Like I said, Islam is obsessed with the outside world. And if you remove that from the religion, then you're left with prayer 5 times a day, and Ramadan, and just a few rituals, which will make Islam really, you might as well become Christian. Or Jew.
How do we win against Islam?
By standing up to our morals and values, and by knowing we are strong, and by taking pride in our culture again, taking pride in the truth, standing up for the truth, ending appeasement and political correctness. And I'm not saying to be blunt and rude, but standing up for our principles.
The Islamic community expresses outrage and is quick to mobilize and demonstrate when they feel their religion or culture has been disrespected. Where is the Islamic community outrage when acts of violence and terrorism are performed by Islamic extremists?
Exactly, that's a very good question, because where are the moderate Muslims to object to the kidnapping of the 300 girls? I don't see them in the street. I don't see, all we saw was some Muslim women in London saying this is good. And where are the moderate Muslims? Oh, CARE comes out with a little statement on the internet. Oh, we condemn the kidnapping of 300 girls. That's all they do. But you don't see them stand and demonstrate and burn and kill like when there was a cartoon. Remember when the cartoon about Muhammad happened? It was in Europe. They were demonstrating all over the Middle East about the cartoon, burning and killing, and where, I mean, if they are really moderate, which I hope they are, how come they're not? I don't want them to burn and kill, but just stand in every Arab capital, say, release those 300 girls. I can only see Jews and Christians who care. I don't see Muslims. Moderate Muslims are not speaking.
All right, we're getting a lot of questions from the audience. This is great. Is there any viable movement in any Middle Eastern country with a realistic chance of creating a non-theocratic democracy?
There are movements, but they are such a minority that they got swallowed by the Islamists eventually. Like, for instance, when the revolution happened in Egypt in 2011, it was started by students, but these students were in the thousands. Egypt is 80 million. So the minute the revolution happened and succeeded, they got the vote and the Muslim Brotherhood won. Same thing in Gaza. They go vote, they vote in Hamas because the majority of people, that's all they know. That's all they know is Islam, because you're living in a system that forbids anybody from even looking at the Bible. Do you know if you go to Saudi Arabia and they catch a Bible in your hand or in your luggage, they will confiscate it. So we're living as Muslims in the Muslim world, unable to know that there is any God other than Allah. And we don't want to be atheists, so they stay Muslim. So when they go to vote, they say, oh, I want to vote for the religion of Allah. It's ignorance. And Islam thrives in ignorance.
How do peaceful Muslims relate to the Qur'an, which tells them to lie and kill the infidels?
They don't read it. Unfortunately, a lot of Muslims, like me, when I was a Muslim, I never really cared to read the Quran, but I consider myself Muslims. And I remember I used to defend the Palestinians without thinking. I defended them like they were victims. But now I look back at it, I go, oh my God, it's not the truth. Arabs don't want peace. They don't want peace, and that's the truth. So the reason is because they don't read it. They don't read the hate speech in the Quran.
I'm going to combine a couple of questions that feel a little complementary to me. One may even partially answer the other. First one is, how do you balance religious freedom against Islam's desire to take over the world? Second one is, given your description of what Islam is and does, how can it be considered a religion?
That's a very good question. Number one, I think we should define in America what a religion should be. And I'll tell you what my definition will be. A religion will be given the respect in America to be practiced only if it respects basic human rights. Any religion, we have to define religion. So if we define religion as a set of values and morals to live by, if a religion condemns those who leave it to death, its rights to be practiced in America will be null and void. And that's the only way we can either reform Islam, they have to get rid of that, and we can't judge Islam by the way Muslims practice it in America, by the way. We have to judge Islam by how it's being practiced in Iran and Saudi Arabia, because wherever Islam is a majority, it's tyranny. When they are in the minority, they admit it. It's even the Quran. When you're in the minority, lie and slander and accept and act like you like peace. So you're dealing with a religion that teaches lying is a virtue.
Islamists are notoriously hostile to people who renounce their ideology. You must be a real thorn in their side. Have you personally experienced violence or threats?
Oh yeah, I have a fatwa on me to die if I go to Egypt, and that's why I can't visit. The only country I can visit in the Middle East is Israel. This is the only country I can visit and stay alive. So that is the religion of peace.
What, if anything, do you think we should do in Syria? Does taking any side make sense?
No, we should keep out of Syria. If Arabs, if the Arab world is very rich, by the way, and they have huge armies. If they want to save the Syrian people, let them do it. Stop interfering between people who are both bad. I mean, you say Shiites or Sunni. They're both terrorists. We can't go against Sunni with Shiites or Shiites with Sunnis. They both want to kill us.
Can you comment on the recent events where a Jewish-based university, Brandeis, reversed an invitation to Ayaan Hirsi Ali to give an address at commencement?
I want to tell you something about it. A lot of people are criticizing the Jewish people because they are not standing up and inviting, people who are like me and Ayaan Hirsi Ali enough. But I want to tell you something. It's time for us non-Jews to stand in the front line against radical Islam. We should not leave the Jews to do that job. It's our job. It's the job of Christians, and I noticed that the Christians in America also are not speaking out. It's not just the Jews. So, of course, I would have liked Brandeis to keep its invitation and not rescind it. With Ayaan Hirsi Ali, it's a shame, but I can understand why the Jews have done enough fighting for their life against radical Islam. It's time for the rest of the world to wake up.
Can you name any prominent leaders in either party in the United States who understand and give voice to the threat?
Who understands and what?
And give voice to the threat that we're facing.
To what?
To the threat.
To the threat of Islam. I think there's a lot of Republicans who are called racists and bigots and Islamophobes. Unfortunately, we have neutered our politicians. We have a lot of great men and women. We have Sarah Palin. We have great men and women. We don't have a shortage of good politicians. A lot of people are angry at our politicians. But you know who I'm angry at? It's us, who don't go and vote. Last election, the reason Mitt Romney didn't vote because a lot of Christians were saying, we don't want to vote for a Mormon. This is ridiculous. You judge a person by his character, and the man had very good character, very good family. And what did we get? That's what we got. So we're getting what we deserve.
When Shiites and Sunnis fight and kill one another, should we do anything besides sit back, make popcorn, and enjoy the spectacle?
Absolutely. Just don't interfere. And by the way, I'm totally against going into Iraq and going into Afghanistan and do nation building after that. Excuse me. We don't want, we're becoming a poor country. We have a lot of poor in America. We don't nation build oil-rich countries. Let their Muslim brethren build their nations. They have plenty of money. Instead of sending it here to build mosques, let them send it there and fix their own country.
Why does the West give money to Islamic terror groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Fatah, and others?
I think it started when Egypt had the peace treaty with Israel. That's how it started. But it's like an insurance policy. Egypt is a poor country, and here's our money. Don't fight Israel. And I think that is more or less the reason we give money to Egypt. That's the truth. They don't admit it, but that's the truth. Israel, we should support Israel absolutely financially, because Israel has been, has been abandoned by the world. Look at what the United Nations is doing to Israel. So I think Egypt, we're helping Egypt so they don't attack Israel. But Gaza and the West Bank, don't send them a dime. Let Saudi Arabia, who's encouraging them to do the terrorism, to either support them or leave them to fend for themselves and get a job. They need a job. The Palestinian people need jobs. They don't need terror.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia played a role in the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers?
Yeah, of course, Saudi Arabia. I mean, the 15 of the 19 terrorists were Saudis. I mean, Saudi Arabia is the most dangerous country in this world. In my opinion, it's more dangerous than Iran. But you know why? Because at least Iran fights, its own men fight for it. Saudi Arabia pays other nations to fight its dirty work through terror. And that scares me more than countries that are up front. They tell you, I'm your enemy and I'm going to kill you. Okay, now I can deal with you. But Saudi Arabia says, I am your ally. And here's the money to Osama bin Laden. Go fly airplanes into buildings. It's the most dangerous nation in the Middle East. And it's the home of Islam. This is where Muhammad came from.
Why do you suppose the 1 billion Muslim slaves don't revolt?
1 million Muslims what?
The 1 billion Muslim slaves don't revolt.
Because when you put somebody for a very long time in a prison, if you open the gate, they don't all run right away. Some people stay in the prison. Like me, when I came to America, I didn't feel free right away. It took me a long time. So, and also the power of oppression of the society around you. If you live in the Muslim world, it's very different from being a Muslim and you live here. It's very easy here to just dump Islam and adopt American values. But when you're living there, the social pressure on you to go pray and social pressure is very, very high. It's changing, however. And I'm seeing some hope that Islam will go dormant again. But it's not going to go dormant like, the culture changes. It takes decades for cultures to change. A human being can change quicker than culture. So in a few decades, if we start drilling oil in America, which we have plenty of, then Saudi Arabia can drink its oil. And that's why anybody in America who's against drilling, and against coal, and against doing, what they're trying to say that the environment is going to suffer if we drill for oil. Are you kidding me? Look at Saudi Arabia and Qatar. They have the most beautiful beaches on the Red Sea, and they're drilling right and left. The lifespan of a Saudi before they discovered oil was like 40 years old. Now it's like 75. So I don't see that the camels are dying in Saudi Arabia from the drilling. They're flourishing. The Red Sea and the Arabian Sea are full of fish. So what are we afraid of? That's all lies. The liberals are lying to you. Because their agenda is to stop the industrialization of America. They want us to roll back and to let the world catch up with us. That's the real motivation. But they can't say they can't be honest. They're like the Islamic ideology. They use lying to reach their goals. It's exactly like Islam. I would have more respect for liberals if they tell you their agenda honestly, and let's have an honest debate. But they don't want to have an honest debate. The liberals want to call you names, just like Islam calls you, you're an apostate, you should go kill yourself. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're an Islamophobe. They're both the same. That's why I figured them. Yeah. Yes, it was very hard. I couldn't change right away because really to live under Islam for a long time can demoralize you, and it really, it's a lot of burden. I have a chapter in my last book, it's called A Muslim's Burden. You know, Christianity lifts your burden, it frees you, it takes away your guilt. That's how we become in Christianity. In Islam, it's a culture of shaming. It's a culture of control. It's a culture of putting burden on the individual. You know, in Christianity, God came down to save us. In Islam, we must save Allah's reputation. And that's why they riot if you say anything about Allah or Muhammad. Because it's the duty of the Muslim to carry the burden of Muhammad and defend him. So it's exactly the opposite. So it wasn't, as soon as my mind cleared, which took a few years living under freedom, I went to, I went to several churches and synagogues. And frankly, I don't find I find Judaism and Christianity is like one in my eyes. I don't know why. Christians don't see that, but I see it. Because Christianity could never have happened without Judaism. So I look at the Judeo-Christian culture as one. And the reason I became Christian, I was watching one morning in 97 TV on Sunday morning, and I was flipping channels, and there were preachers, one after the other. And they were praying for the whole world. They were praying for peace on earth. They were praying for everybody, all nations, and that just struck me. And I said, oh my God, my religion curses. I grew up with cursing. Every Friday prayer, the Muslim preacher would sit and curse and bang and get the sword out go do jihad. May God destroy the Jews and the infidels. Allahu Akbar. And people go out of the mosque and kill Christians as a result of being in a mosque. So I saw the man, he made me feel so at peace. I became a better person. And that's why it wasn't difficult for me to become Christian and to support Israel. It lifted my guilt.
All right, I've got one more question for you, and then we want to make sure you have some time to sign books for your
Sure.
fans. So this one's a challenging one. You say you're not against Muslims, but against their ideology. How can you separate the two? You're not holding people accountable for their actions. Ideology doesn't kill people. People kill people.
We human beings are very weak. Let me tell you, we are all born half good and half bad. Depending on our religion, we either strengthen the good or strengthen the bad. So Muslims are really the victims of Islam. They have been brought up in an ideology. We don't even know that lying and slander against Jews is evil. We think it's a virtue. Believe me, if I go and say in the Muslim world today, if I make a speech about forgiveness between Jews and Arabs, I will be shot dead on the spot as a traitor. While the same sermon in America about forgiveness between Jews and Arabs would give me a Nobel Peace Prize, So it's the same thing, but one culture looks at it as evil and one culture looks at it as a virtue. So that's the problem. Muslims are the victim of an evil ideology. Thank you.